Saturday, everybody. Good afternoon. See, I said good morning and not, I said good afternoon, not good morning, because I guess it really feels like afternoon. So, first of all, forgive me. I am actually sick now. I'm in court with my grandkids had all week. I guess it was inevitable, but we're going to do this. I'm very excited about our guest today, Matt Yates, Reptiles. Actually, it's something that's going to be really funny. I'll talk with Matt about, because I didn't discover it until now, but we'll talk about it when we bring Matt on the show. I do want to, first of all, thank the sponsor of this episode, Maki, Unique Serpents by Maki. Maki is the sponsor for this episode, and our co-sponsor, Maryland Reptile Farm, Diamondback Reptiles. And as I said, they actually do a lot of our local Maryland and Virginia and PA shows. And we've partnered with them to do some live broadcasting and just bring some more reptile ownership and awareness, USARK awareness and things like that to the community right here in Maryland. Often we do a lot for the bigger shows, the NARBCs and, you know, the national shows like Repticon and everything else. But, you know, we sometimes forget our local shows. So I just thought that was a great way to connect and bring awareness in the community, especially at that show, because it's a show that I used to frequent before I started doing these Saturday broadcastings. I used to go there all the time. It's one of Michael's shows he likes to go to, because it's not a long drive like some of the other PA shows that I prefer, but Michael likes to go to the Maryland and the Northern Virginia shows, so I'm excited about that. And then lastly, I want to just tell everybody, this is 2023, so it kicks off my 2023 campaign for the November 17th through 19th San Diego 3-day breast cancer walk. And this year, I want my reptile family, those of you who are willing and able, to join me. And I want us to create a team based around our community, the reptile community. The walk is not just for females. There are families who walk. And actually, I would say that a lot of why the walk is so successful is because of all the men who actually assist. So with that being said, if anybody is interested, I'm not going to complete my individual registration until February the 15th. It's important, if you're interested, that you definitely want to, you definitely want to start campaigning now, because this is what we have to do to register and be able to walk. So it's several things, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear before anyone commit. This trip is not an inexpensive trip for me and my husband. When we take this trip, it is a sacrifice that we make from our family to do so. The donations that you guys provide is the donations that we would have to pay anyway to walk. So let's say if no one donated to my cause, no one donated to Team Nicole, no one donated to Team, whatever you want to call it, Reptile Hobby, Reptile Gangsters, whatever, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. We're going to come up with a great name based on who's on the team. Once you actually say, okay, I'm committed, you have to raise $2,300 individually. That is the only way you can do the 3-day walk. Yes, you have to raise $2,300 to walk your butt off for 3 days. But it's one of the most rewarding experiences. And that's why I tried to bring it to you as much as I could this past November. One of the most rewarding things that I do in my life, and I promise you, if you come with me and you try it, it will be the most rewarding thing that you would do in your life. And anyone who's been in San Diego, it is the most beautiful place to walk 60 miles. Yes, there are some hills that kill, but at the end of the day, we still end up walking across a finish line on day 3, whereas though some people don't get that option to even wake up on day 3 because they actually lost their battle to cancer. So with that being said, share, I'm going to actually share a notification later on this week. If you guys in the chat are at all interested, let me know. I can give you all of the details. If we get enough people, I'll reach out to my travel agent and maybe she can do some type of flight package for those of you who will be flying into San Diego, because that's the most expensive part, to be honest, is the flight and well, you can camp. Camping is an option, and ladies do it, men do it, and they love it. I'm not an outside camper girl. I don't even care if it's by the water. I don't care if it's warm. I need to be, after walking 20, going back to a high jacuzzi or something and, relax in a nice plush hotel. So they provide you all the discounts for these hotels. So if you book it early, we make our team, we get everything done in advance, because it's not something that you want to wait last minute to, because the hardest part is collecting the $2,300, getting people to donate. And if we do this as a reptile community, it's going to be even harder. It was hard for me as an individual, the only person who was doing it, and then it's all of you guys. So we would have to tap into our different resources to be successful in our individual donations. But anybody who's willing, let's do this. November 17th through 19th is the San Diego Cancer Walk this year. If you don't want to do that, they are also, although reduced the number of states you go to, there are other states you can go to. You can go to Boston, you can go to Fort Worth. And they stopped the Georgia one. I believe they may have still have the Philadelphia one. I'll double check, but it's like 4 now. It used to be like 8 or 9, but it's like 4. So we want to keep it going, definitely for San Diego, because San Diego is where it started. I didn't even know that until a couple years ago. So kudos to anybody who want to join it. It is fun. I can tell you that you will meet the most amazing people in your life. You will have experiences that will change your mindset about living for the rest of your life. So it's good to that. And we doing it for a good cause. We're saving lives. So just let me know. And to no further ado, we're going to go here. We're going to kick off our intro. And we're going to bring in our guest. Hold tight. All right. So I actually love that song. I actually play it in the background when it's playing. So to no further ado, we're going to bring on our guest. Hey, Matt.
Hey, what's happening? How are you doing?
Can everybody hear me and Matt okay? Let us know in the chat.
We had some technical difficulties earlier. I think we got it dialed in, but definitely let us know.
Before we get the rolling, let us know.
I do not have the chat available, so anybody that has comments, drop it in there. Let me know.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, thumbs up. I trust Ray. Ray say we good, so let's go. So Matt, we're going to start off here. If you can just tell the people, where are you from? What state are you living in right now?
So I currently reside in the state of Arizona. I'm in a suburb of Phoenix. It's called Chandler. Awesome place to live. Love it. Great weather. Minus, a couple months in the summer. But, originally I'm from the Midwest. I am a transplant from Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
And, kind of started my reptile journey in that area.
Now, I don't know for the life of me why I thought all this time you were either in Maryland or California. And let me tell you where it really made me think you were from, Maryland. When we were in, I think you had texted me when we were in at Bigger Pockets. We were in California. And you said that you had planned to come, but, you know, for whatever reason that you didn't. So I was like, did I meet Matt in Maryland or did I meet him in California? And then just kind of like watching and doing my research, I'm like, I didn't meet Matt anywhere. So it must have been our connections from, I think we shared at least 2 Patreons.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know,
I was like,
that's one of my bigger regrets was the BP Con. That was, from what I heard, a great event and full intentions of going and attending, and literally had I had it in the cart to purchase. I was like, I'll get to it later. And then it sold out. And that was, sort of a disappointment. Looked like there was a lot of, obviously the usual suspects, people that are normally involved in the real estate game, but also some hybrids, some people that were snake breeders that were there. That was kind of cool to see.
Exactly. And it was really funny because I tell a story. Justin was cutting up in the hotel. So apparently our hotel rooms were literally near each other the whole time. So I didn't know. We didn't see each other the whole time. So it was probably like day 2. And I hear somebody playing in the hallways. And, you can hear the girl laughing like, stop. And then we get around the corner and you hear him say literally, wow, don't nobody know me here. Because he thinking there's no reptile people. And then I get to the elevator. I'm like, hey, Justin. He was like, you know me? It was
That's
so
hilarious.
funny.
Yeah.
But it was a nice event. Not just the content and the experience, because that was wonderful in its own, but the location, the hotel, like the views that we had. Literally, is it the Padres? They were playing the final. What y'all call that in baseball? Because I hate it. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so they was playing the World Series or whatever that is, the finals.
Okay.
And they won the night, and we literally got video laying right from our hotel bed.
That's amazing.
All of the fireworks, like you could see the entire stadium and everything. And so apparently when they booked this hotel, they made sure that we had all of these gorgeous views, and it was right on the water. It was wonderful. But the content was most amazing, for sure.
Yeah, like I was saying, I regretted not getting in, and you're kind of rubbing it in my face a little bit, Nicole. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm sorry. Like even the discounts we got on books, like one of the books I keep right here, and I'm still reading this one. I think I came back with like 6 books and had 2 ships. But like even some of the things that you read in the books, it's so it sounds like almost too good to be true type of things. It's like, but then because you were there and you see these younger people who actually put these tools in play, and you see how wealthy they become, it's definitely an amazing thing. So we're definitely going to talk about more of that towards the end, but more of the real estate and the investing part. But you're from Arizona. How did you get into reptiles? Like when did you realize I am a reptile dude?
So, my story is not too different from probably anybody you talk to in the industry. From a young age, I was like, I don't know, a child, a 5-year-old, infatuated with dinosaurs and such. Somehow, at the age of 5, I talked my parents into letting me get a lizard. And I had, just a little swift, nothing too exciting or exotic. And was always the kid that was, by the pond when we went camping, trying to catch frogs and all the stuff that, a kid does that's into that kind of stuff. And, I naturally transitioned into this love of reptiles. I remember, being like 10 and like trying to talk my mom into getting an iguana. And, as parents do, they use that to, hey, if you get these grades, whatever. But, eventually my mom got on board with it, and I got the results that I needed to get into something along those lines. Snakes were always sort of off the table until I got to a certain point. Maybe I was like 15 or something. I think I got like a ball python, sometime, mid 90s. And I did a handful of other little projects. I was working through, I did a lot of like crested gecko breeding when I was like in my 20s, some leopard gecko stuff, viper geckos, a lot of geckos, and eventually landed on ball pythons about '07, I think. I got my first like a 1.1, just very basic codom stuff. It was kind of hot stuff for the time, but I think I got a spider and a lesser pastel, was shooting for queen bees, and was very excited about that, and eventually hit that, and have developed with the industry, right? Like this industry is really a lot of fun happenings, a lot of great people in it, and so now working on a lot of codom projects, and have been for some time. But I've rolled a lot of double, triple recessive projects in too. So as I stand currently, I'm maybe sitting at about like 100-ish snakes. Kind of depends. That's something that varies from if I'm in season, if I'm hatching stuff out and whatnot. But I always try and be intentionally small and have a focus on quality. I'd rather provide the care to my animals that that they deserve.
And so, how many total years have you been breeding? Like total?
I want to say my first clutch I got was about 2010. There may have just been a year or two in there that I took off or went real light, didn't do a lot of pairings. Over time, what you're doing with your life. Haven't always been all in on reptiles every year. Some dedication to my career or family. But yeah, most of the time, we're looking at about probably like 10 to 12 breeding seasons, probably. Some bigger than others. Some could just be maybe a couple clutches. Others are 10 to 12. I try and keep it a little smaller. I've grown a lot with holdbacks when I'm working on these triple recessive projects. You kind of have to take a chance on some stuff and hold a lot more stuff back, just playing the odds. So I've got a little bit of a bigger collection than I would personally like currently, but not something that's not manageable. You don't want a second job,
Right. And that's the thing. You always want to keep that balance. Like I already know my number before my very first clutch, right? I just know what that number is, and I know what I have and what that feels like, and I enjoy it so much. But I know that can just take me, an hour or so. When it gets to taking 4 hours, and then you got all these additional pets, or 8 hours, and you got all these additional pets. Like in my scenario, everybody's scenario is different. Like I say, for some people often ask me, well, how do you manage all of that? I don't have babies. Because when I think about people who have babies and have to clean snake shit, I don't know how they do it. Or those people who have to get up in the morning, take kids to school, daycare, do sports, all of that, and then come back and do that. So salute to you people, because I can tell you that I knew that wasn't a scenario for me with the type of job I had and my kids being younger, already having a demanding role where, you have to stretch yourself so thin. It wouldn't have been fair to the animals to go crazy. Although I always had pets. I mean, what I have now is nothing compared to what I used to have. I went crazy.
That's a real thing. People, get a little over their head sometimes. And I'm not somebody that's not guilty of that. I mean, I've had probably at some point in time when I was younger, like almost every pet under the sun. I used to work at a Petco. I would, snag random stuff all the time, and had, tanks everywhere. And, I've moved into a focus of ball pythons. It's not a lack of desire to have any of the other cool stuff. I'm a big fan of arboreal, tree pythons. I like, emerald tree boas and I like a lot of the arboreal stuff. For whatever reason, that just like calls to me. But some of that stuff is a little bit more intensive. Ball pythons are real easy. I mean, truly, if you just have the basic care requirements, you have a rack system, and you do a weekly clean plus a little spot checking here and there, make sure they got fresh water, make sure they're fed. It's nothing overly complicated. And that's kind of what I like about it. It allows me to live my life and, give my time to my family, give my time to my craft, and everybody gets their fair split,
Yeah. What is the family dynamic? Are there small children, or are you married, single? Like what's the life with the help and the support in the household?
I've got a lady here, and we've got a young son as well as a daughter. My son is 6. He is at his second baseball game right now. So he was fortunate enough to let me slide on that.
I was getting ready to say, how you get out of that? Didn't we talk about?
Well, we scheduled this before and didn't realize the first game last week. I was there and attended and rooting him on, and he did great. A couple of base hits, fielded a grounder. He did really good, surprisingly. But I don't know if you've ever been to you said you don't like baseball, but if you ever go to
I had to go. So my son played every sport.
Think about a 6-year-old or group of 6-year-olds playing baseball that have no idea what they're doing. I mean, they're like fighting each other for the ball. It's comic, but it's also a little hard to watch. So, it was great to cheer him on and see him do well, but I'm okay with taking a week off,
Yeah. See, I'm the biggest cheerleader. My sport though, like it's totally different. Basketball and football. Like I'm the mother. I was the team mom for my son's very first football team, and I know it was times they was like, "This who picked her? Like she is running down the field with the kids." I was like I love doing the team mom for my son. The one sport that he played was bocce.
Okay.
And I didn't know what in the world, y'all. I didn't know what I was looking at. So when everybody else would clap and stuff, that's when me and my husband would go. We'd be like, we don't know what to happen. But my son was so serious about it.
Bocce, I don't even I've heard of it, I guess.
So it's a big sport apparently. And so in Fort Washington, I never heard of it growing up.
Yeah.
But here in Fort Washington, it's like a real big sport. But it's a sport. It might be a Chinese sport or something like that. I've seen it on Olympics, but I never know what it is. It's like literally what it looks like to me. They throw in the little Chuck E. Cheese balls, and it has to like meet in the center somewhere, and whoever ball meets there the quickest or something. That's what it looks like to me. I've never figured it out. I went a whole bocce season for 3 years, and I still don't know. But I would be like, everybody else is like,
good job. That's awesome.
I'm supportive. What about the kids with the snake breeding? Do they actually inquire about it? Are they hands-on with it?
It's funny. So my daughter will have maybe friends over or something. She's a teenager. She's 15, and you're like, "Oh, you have ball pythons?" Like she doesn't talk about it, and I'm kind of low key on my collection because people have phobias and whatever. And they get excited. Some of them, not all of them, believe me, but they get excited. They're like, "Oh my God, I have a ball python." I'm like, "Why didn't you tell your friend? Like, come on." I'll give them stickers and be like, "Hey, follow my Instagram" and all that stuff. And it's happened a couple of times. It's kind of funny. My son.
It's a pretty cool story to tell. As a kid, it's a pretty cool. Most kids won't believe it. Like my granddaughter do it all the time, and then teachers will ask my daughter, who is my my child, Skylar says she swims with a water monitor, and they think she's telling stories, and it's a true story for her. So it's so cool.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's cool to have kids brought up in a diverse environment like that, where they're able to see non-traditional pets and play with them. My son, he just all my I have a pretty sizable hatchling rack, and he's like, "These are my snakes." He doesn't really have much to do with them. He certainly doesn't help me clean, but he claims the young snakes as his. So I just go with it.
Now, do you think, and I always ask this because literally I believe that if I close my eyes today, that little girl, my granddaughter, could run everything in here with help because I got big snakes too. But far as how and what needs to be done on a daily basis, she got it. She even walks around with her own little books, and she'll note and she'll say, "Did you know?" Because she calls Reptiscan RS, so that's what I call it. Because she won't say. Nice. She'll say, "Did you log this in RS?" And I'll be like, "Yeah." She'd be like, "Oh, you missed a chat," and she can take my iPad, go through Reptiscan, go through the names, and pair it up to her little book. It's cool to see her do. And I told my husband, literally, she knows what to do for each individual animal, for each individual scenario. Now, of course, you're not going to leave a 7-year-old with a 14-foot retic, but she could say, "Hey," she tells me sometimes, "Hey, T'Challa, just use the bathroom. You need to change this bowl or that," and she'll come tell me, and I'll go do it and things like that. For your kids, do any of them show the fact that I want to do this? or their passions kind of stay separated?
Yeah, I don't think they're with it. It's not that they dislike it, but they don't want to do it. Occasionally I'll bribe them and have them clean tubs, and I'll pay them. I'll be like, whatever, I'll give you 50 cents a tub or something if you clean these tubs. And
Right.
And depending on their level of motivation in the day, they may not take me up on that. But sometimes it helps to outsource some of that. But as for like Reptiscan, they'd be like, what's a Reptiscan? They don't know. That's not something that they would be that involved in.
Yeah, so she actually knows it because she touches it, and she literally is. It's almost like you said about cleaning the tubs. She will say, "Hey, I know it's only 3 more days before I come to your house. Can you save the poop? Don't clean all the poop." And I'm like, I got to clean the poop. But she likes when it's after that feeding cycle, and all of them seem like they went to the bathroom at the same time. Oh, she gets so excited because she gets to clean all the poop, and it's just crazy to me. I'm like, I hope you stay that way.
How old is she?
She's 6. She'll be 7 in March.
Okay, in about like 10 more years, let her know I'll be looking for somebody. Got a job.
Yeah. That's what I said. I hope you stay this way.
Yeah.
I hope you don't go up and be too cute to clean poop. So you talked about you're having the double and the triple recessives now. When you first started, you had the single genes, the single codons. Now, at what year was it when you said, I'm serious about this, let me flip my entire plan?
So, I want to say, so I've been in Arizona about 6 years, maybe a couple of years after moving here. I was able to focus my efforts a little bit more into my ball python stuff. It's always sort of just been something I've done. I've not always taken it very seriously. It's just been, I liked it. It's not like I didn't treat it as a business. And more recently, I've developed a little bit more of a business plan, gotten a little bit more serious about it, getting myself out, networking, doing all of that. There was a point in time where I was working on like, some DG hypo stuff and some clown hypo stuff. And Justin had listed triple recessive, a triple het male. And I was like, why don't I go bigger? Like before, when you start thinking about, when you're young or where you're newer to the game, you start thinking about, boy, it's going to take, okay, I want to introduce this codom into this recessive project. Well, I got to breed the snake. Then I got to take the snake, hold it back, raise it up to a certain, breed it back out. It's a long process.
Right.
But when you get into it and you're doing it for so long, 1 generation, 2 generations is not that big a deal. You're going to be doing it anyways. When you've got X amount of snakes, you're going to be feeding all of them. What's 1 more tub or 2 more tubs, right? And so I thought about it. I'm like, I should just like marry these 2 projects, and started taking the, hypo DG and the hypo clown stuff and rolling it together and making it one big triple project. And, it's ambitious at the time, but like at this point in time, everybody's doing it. It took a little bit of like this, shift in mindset for me to take advantage of that opportunity. But it was just one individual animal that made me think, hey, you know what? This works in all my projects. Let's roll with it.
Right. Yeah. So I'm grateful that I had some, before I bought the first sets of pair, and I had some very smart people to tell me what to buy, and their message was, if you have the money, buy the snakes, buy the visual version of the snakes if you can. And then at that particular time, when DG was still, as it is now, but I think that year, 2019, DG is all I heard. So I purchased a couple that were like, I'll say like double visuals, and then they had the het DGs, and then that third year though, when I came into that second year when I came into 2020, it was literally like listening to Reggie. Reggie was a big part of what I was going to buy in the future. I used to watch his live videos. So he used to do these live videos when I was in the bro group a lot. And then he would literally go through his collection and just kind of talk through the process, kind of just showing the snakes and talking through the process. And I would ask like really goofy questions, and sometimes like messing with him almost like, so if you put this to this, you're going to get this, just try to get to understand it better. But when I decided that this is what I was going to do, he was the one who said to me, I'm telling you, get into the double and triple recesses. Like, he was like, if you can, just do it. And so fortunately, that's what I did. The unfortunate part about that is that you spend a lot of money up front, right?
Oh.
And then you got to grow them up, because I wanted them to be babies. And then the anticipation of those that you spent all the money on, you just can't wait. Like, I'm not patient. It's like, hurry up, grow up, hurry up and grow up. So I can say for the ones that I didn't spend a lot of money on per se, it was easier, or let's say less stressful, to grow them up for a couple years than the ones that I did. So yeah, I would give that advice to people. Like what you said, if you can, like if you're a patient person, that makes more sense. But if you're a patient person and you say, okay, I get that this is going to take two whole years to raise up this female at minimum, the right way, you know, I guess you could say, then it may be a little bit more nerve-wracking in a good way, not in a bad way.
No, it's you know, like you said, you hit the nail on the head, right? You just, you know, patience is a virtue. You have to work through that, and you know, you have to have the right mindset to be able to, you know, be like, hey, I'm gonna put whatever, $2,000, $5,000, whatever your dollar amount is, and just sit. That money's in limbo essentially, and you know, you could lose that animal. Something could happen. You know, it's not always perfect sunshine and rainbows, right? Like, it's sort of a risk, but no risk, no reward. You know, so sometimes you got to put that risk out there and take a chance on something. And you know, I'm at a point now in my collection where, you know, it's not about buying high-end males. You know, there's still value in that, but it's about high-end females. If you can go and you can buy those real nice double females or whatever and raise them up, they will retain their value. They'll have that for many years to come, and you will be very happy you've done it. I remember the first time I spent like $3,000 on a snake, and you know, it was a big drop for me. I was kind of a little scary. And like, I've had so many awesome clutches from that snake where I've more than made my money back every time I've had a clutch. You know, so, you know, if you can spare the money, I mean, do what's within your budget, right? But if you're able to put together a little cash and make a solid purchase that works for your plans, your program, then that's the way to do it. And, you know, I think you will be rewarded for your patience.
I definitely agree. And it's good to see, like, you know, so many animals building now. I keep saying, though, the year for me that I'm going to be super duper excited is next year. Like this season, next year, I probably don't even want to leave the house. Like that excited. So
I say that every year.
So this is like, please just have eggs that hatch and live year. Next year is super
every year I tell myself that. I'm like, this year is going to be lit. I'm like, this is going to be the year. I'm going to have, but like, I say that every season because it's a constantly evolving process, right? You're always like, oh my God, what's coming down the pipeline? What am I going to hit? I mean, just coming out the gate, like my first clutch is going to be so solid. And I'm like, you know, when you get a little bit more seasoned in the game, it doesn't bother you as much the weight on eggs and the weight on, you know, them hatching. But like right now, as I'm waiting for like clutch number 1, I've got a real nice female that I'm just like, oh, she needs to hurry up and spit these things out. I want these eggs on the ground. I want to be able to see them, count them, look at them.
Right.
Yeah.
And so talk about your first clutch. What was that feeling like?
I mean, amazing. You know, like I think everybody can sort of relate to that, right? Who cares what level you're on? My first clutch, I had a male that I purchased. It was a lesser pastel. Again, by today's standards, not that big a deal. Very visually pleasing animal and pretty cool stuff at the time. You know, double codoms were were a bigger deal at the time. And it was just to a large female, like normal that I purchased at a, you know, like who even has normals anymore, right? But then if you had a female normal, you're producing clutches with them. It was a big deal. And I produced, you know, just a handful of, you know, some pastels, some lessers, and maybe a lesser pastel or two. But that was the most exciting thing to me at the time. And that's like this hobby at its purest, right? Like me just as a hobbyist producing what I was shooting for, and just the excitement of, I mean, it's tough to not, you know, cut eggs when when you don't know, like, there's some real challenges with that. Just, you got to be disciplined. You got to wait. And, if you can wait, you will be rewarded.
Yes. Well, you have no choice, right? Like
You certainly have to wait. Well, you can too early. I
you
definitely
have a
built it
baby.
up a little early, but at this point in time, I try and wait until something pips before I cut anything.
So look, I already told everybody when I had my first clutch, it's going to be a whole show. I don't care what comes out the egg. It's going to be a whole show. I'm going to be worse. One of the cutest things is when Kent from Craft Brew had his first clutch. And when I tell you that this clutch haunted us for like a whole 30 days, every day, all day. But it was the cutest thing. You could understand the excitement. So I make the joke, I tell everybody that when I had my first clutch, I'm going to be worse than Kent. Y'all want to be...
It's a very exciting time. I mean, you got to think there's so much like buildup, so much anticipation that goes into a person's first clutch. I had somebody I sold a snake to recently, and I was walking them through it. They got their first clutch. And like, I share that excitement with them, like I'm maybe not quite as excited as they are, but I'm right up there with them and I'm just rooting them on. I love, this hobby, this industry, the direction it's going on, the diversity, the new faces, like it's such an exciting time to be a ball python breeder or just reptiles in general.
I agree.
Like it's really come along. It's gotten to be a lot more mainstream. Like I said earlier, I'm kind of low key about my operation and what I do. And, I don't like advertise it to people because, everyone has their own phobias or whatever. But, these days it's not as uncommon to have a ball python and get people, on board with this whole thing. I mean, these snakes are docile, easy to keep, amazing colors and patterns. If some people have phobias and some people, you can conquer those phobias. They'll get over it. So it just kind of depends on the person, it's as they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Well, you can, teach a person, you can show them, but if they're not willing to like kind of go over that hurdle and move forward with, conquering that phobia, you can't make them do that.
I agree. I can tell you this, anybody who I've actually had to at least put one in their hand totally changed their mindset, especially the ball pythons. My biggest win, or when I think about when you talk about becoming more mainstream, my husband is my biggest win. Like to see him just go and like get a retake is amazing to me. This is someone who wouldn't enter the house without a phone call to his wife to make sure the snakes are up. I'm so like he just didn't do them. If one got out, babe, I'm sorry, I can't come back home with the snake out. That was my husband. And then now to see him, and I know his family be like, no way. Like, no way. But I can say that how we approach people with these animals is major. Like you can't play certain jokes and games with people who are fearful. There are grown men
that
who
will
are terrified, right? Like literally terrified of these, what we call little pet rocks sometimes. That's not what they see.
Literally a tiny little, they're like, you can make a grown man cry. And it's, yes, in some level it's entertaining, right? But, I am all for not putting people outside of their comfort zone unless they're willing to step outside of it.
Right.
One part I love about, going to shows, I've not really been, lately I've been trying to make a push to do shows and stuff, but like, man, the kids, like the excitement, you see their eyes light up. They get pumped up and sometimes it may be the first time they've ever held a snake and you taking the time to have that interaction and put this out there to these children or adults for that matter, could like literally change the course of their life. I mean, they could be, the next whatever, JKR, like you don't know what's going to happen moving forward. And just, I don't know, it's like the butterfly effect, right? Just like the littlest thing, you just taking the time to talk and let a kid hold a snake. So like, some people go to these shows and, they're big on their sales and whatever. And of course, yes, that's great to make the sales, but I love the connections. I like taking the time to, shoot the shit with people a little bit and educate them and let them have a snake. I have no problem at any point in time having a child, come and hold a snake at my table. And, I'll come around and I'll help them hold it and make sure they don't drop it. But I think that's just kind of part of, being in the community, contributing.
Well, it's the part that you should enjoy, because at the end of the day, like I say, we're not going to always be here, and we've invested so much in a hobby, whether from a keeper or breeder side, that we don't want to see that just become not a part of history. Not being reptile keepers become a part of history. I often share that, like with my childhood, where I grew up at, it was a very urban area, but it was on the water. So we like having animals were taboo in the sense of the fact that most people was running from what was in the woods, not going in the woods to go get it. The crazy thing now is you could not get me to walk through a woods as an adult. Like, as much as I stayed, and my mother, and shout out to my mom. Today is my mom's birthday, everybody. Shout out to my mom. She's not in the chat. She rarely even watches these, but I'm sure if my siblings or someone is watching, they will share with her. But it's crazy. My father's birthday was the 26th. My grandfather's was yesterday, and my mother's is today. My grandfather and my father are deceased, but my mom is still here. So I don't want to forget, and I don't want to be remiss to say shout out to my mom for having a great birthday today. She's 72 today. 72, and one of the strongest women I know. She still lifts dresses and stuff by herself. So.
Yeah, shout out to all the mothers out there, really. I mean, that's amazing. Your mother is 72. My mom's about to be 70. You talked about your walk and everything. My mother's a double mastectomy survivor.
Oh, wow. So you get it.
Yeah, I totally get it. In fact, I'd like to be the first one to contribute. You send me a link or something. I'll put a donation up to try and help you get your number. And, I think it's important. I love the fact that you do this walks and you bring some level of awareness. And so that's something that hits, especially close to home for me personally.
It hits close to home for so many people. And what I say all the time, even if it doesn't hit close to home for you today, it will. Statistically, it's no way around it unless we continue to improve the care of it. But it was my promise, man. It was my promise to God. If he let my sister live, because when she found out, she was 35. So she was before the age of getting testing at that time. They just increased it to the age of 40, where they'll let us in the last few years. And that was my promise to God if she lives. So it's one of those things. And I'm going to tell y'all, like, this past year was the first year after my surgery. So, with the surgery I have no hormones. So, you need hormones for your strength and your endurance. Your hormones control so much that you don't realize until you don't have them. This was the first year I did it. So I was worried about cramping. I was worried about not being able to do it. I think it was day 2. When I got back to the hotel room, my husband looked at me. He said, "You sure you're going to be able to do day 3? And I always just say in my head, I don't have a choice. That was my promise. And so as I'm walking, that's something I say to my head. This is my promise. Or when it gets really hard, I'll say, at least you don't have chemo. Like, you really have to talk yourself through it, So one of my greatest when it gets really, really hard is that you could be facing death, wanting to be out here walking 60 miles.
Yeah.
Which one would you rather be doing? And I'm telling you, it pushes you to just keep going. Or when you see a 96-year-old man walking for his wife who died,
Yeah. I mean, you're
shut up.
Really. You're healthy enough to be able to do that, to accomplish something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And them hills in San Diego are no joke. Like, it's a lot. So, so I appreciate it. And it's going to be something I do to the day I die, because that was my promise. So, or until the day that I'm not physically able to do it. So what I say is, God, you know what I do every year? Keep me physically fit. Like, keep me physically fit so I can do that. So I wanted to dive in. You talked about the shows. I wanted you to run us through, what is your process getting prepared for a show? So you got a show next weekend. And let's say it's in California. You're in Arizona, it's in California. How do you go to prepare for that? Yourself, your animals, and your displays and all of that?
Man, I'm telling you, those shows, you see some people, like somebody that comes to mind, Troy Best Dressed. That guy, I follow him on Instagram. That guy is at Troy every weekend. It's crazy. And anybody that's done a show knows how much work goes into it. I don't care if you have one little display, a couple of tubs. I mean, it's work. It's work to pack all these animals up. It's work to get your display, all your stuff put together, price them out, label them. Like and then if you got a haul, you know, you're going 6 hours, 12 hours, whatever it may be. I mean, it is not an insignificant amount of work. And I always underestimate it until I'm already into it. And I'm like, I'm so tired. I want to go to bed and find myself staying up way too late. You know, for shows, I'm probably not the best source to tell you about the process because, okay, so I've done reptiles a long time. I used to do some shows in Omaha, and I was really humbled one time. I thought I was hot shit with my lesser pastels or whatever, you know, queen bees, little tiny things, and I got a little table at a show there, and then I was placed across from Brian at BHB. This dude has, you know, 5 tables long. Just all the, you know, hottest, coolest stuff. It's hard to even get a look when you're across from somebody like that. Right. So I kind of like dropped shows off my radar for a while and more recently picked it up. And so, yeah, I'm blessed enough to have this super show that's close to me, and I'm making an effort. I've done the last 2 of them. I'm going to try and do a little bit more. I may even get involved in the local shows. They do one in Mesa here. Okay. But, you know, really the process, I guess the best thing you can do is just do the prep work ahead of time because, you know, I find myself, it's crunch time. You know, we were all probably at one point in time that kid that was trying to do the homework real quick, right? You know, like right. Before class, you know, crunching some numbers, getting it all done. And I swear every time I tell myself I won't do it, but that's where I find myself. And oftentimes even at the show, I'll be like, oh yeah, I never priced this one out. What's the price? I'm looking at Morph Market. I'm trying to figure out where I should be, you know, to be, you know, a reasonable median in the, you know, not too high, not too low, kind of what's a good show price. It's hard. It's hard to price them. It's hard to label them. It's hard to ID them. This is not an easy job, but it's fun. It's rewarding.
Yep, got you. So what are your top 3 favorite Codom jeans right now?
Codom jeans.
I know that's hard.
That is hard. All right. Well, you know what I can kick it off with?
I know you can give me your top 3 recessives real fast because
I'll give you recessives easy. But you know, we're gonna kick it off with the Codoms and okay. Say, you know what I like? Cypress. Fucking Cypress is nice. I mean, it is. Cypress. It's one of those that just looks so clean in so many combos. I overlooked it for a long time, and more recently, I've really warmed up to it. I'm like, what? And I'm like, Cypress everything. Give me Cypress. You know, if we're just like talking about hot and things that can really alter pattern and color, the lace stuff is looking real nice. You know, lace is seeing its day right now. And it's funny how that happens. You know, lace is one of those, it's not a new gene and it's been around, but you know, all it takes is that right, you know, JKR combo and before you know it, you know, it's blowing up. And so, you know, I've got a little bit of lace in my collection. And I like dark stuff too. You know, if I
love dark jeans.
I'm vibing on black pastel stuff. You know, black pastel sort of had its day and went away a little bit, and it's sort of making a resurgence right now. Another one that I'm really vibing with these days, Blackhead. Blackhead is amazing. And you start stacking some of those. You know, you do like some GHI, Blackhead, black pastel. Oh. Those are nice combos. You throw and you do a lightener or cleaner like a DG on top of that. I mean, that's some good stuff right there.
So I'm currently pairing my Blackhead Gravel to my Ivory Pastel. So I am dying to see what they produce. And the Ivory Pastel actually is het pie. So I'm dying to see. But it's funny. Every Codom that you stated, I have. Shout out to Reggie again, because Reggie told me
sounds like he steered you right.
You got to have black pastel, and I bought my black pastel from him. I got both of my het DG. Both of them I got from him, and then I got the Cypress. I knew I wanted Cypress just based on everything that I saw. So I love Cypress put in with pastel and Blackhead. It just is beautiful. And then when you talk about dark jeans, Cypress with any dark jean to me, just produces a incredible snake. So Cypress was a must, and my Cypress girl, actually, she's a quadruple hat. So I kind of like nailed it with that one.
Exactly.
And she was by accident. I got her from Aussie. The snake I wanted, somebody else bought. And so then it was like, well, I want something else. I definitely wanted to be a visual orchomel or a hat for orchomel. And he was like, well, I got a Cypress quadruple hat. Oh, yeah, let's get that one.
What's she carrying?
Say it again.
What is she carrying? What's her genes?
So she has Cypress, had orchomel, had pod, had hypo, had clown.
Okay. I bought a very similar snake from Ozzy. It's not a quad het, but a pos quad het. Could have been even from a comparable clutch. I had, I think it's like het, pied, 66 on ultramel and clown, and 50 on hypo or something along. But
yeah, it's the same. It's the same. It's the same one because she's 66% had everything except for the hypo. The hypo is the 50%.
Okay, so that could be
the same. Yeah, it's probably the same. So because that was a nice clutch, and actually I wanted a visual. I think as he had created like a visual Cypress orchomel, and someone like snatched that thing up because they make a joke about me. You got to buy all these his top snakes. You got to buy them out the egg because even when he posts them in the Patreon, it's like war.
I mean, Ozzy's put in his time, man. Like he's one of those old school dudes that've been around for a long time. He's really, I like a lot of the content he's putting out these days. But some of these guys, they all right. So like your results compound, right? So like it's like anything. If you were investing in the stock market, or if you were investing in your ball pythons, right? You're buying stuff, and then you're buying genes on top of it. And then the work you've already put in, you've already got a female that's up to size. You could put this new male that you purchased up. And so, the more time you get in is the better results you're going to get, I guess, right? Like some people could come in and they could buy things and just like get going off tops, but we all have to buy in at some point in time. And the more time you can put in, the better results you can get.
Exactly. I agree. Definitely. But it must be cool to like post, 15 snakes all above 5,000 and people fighting for them.
Oh, yeah. Someday, that's the dream, right? Hopefully one day. Not quite there.
Is a problem.
Yeah, that's the dream for sure.
This is definitely a problem. So let's get into like the real estate. So have you looked into anything into Arizona? Where are you at with that process? Or no, I might be confusing it. Did you recently buy a rental property, or y'all moved out of a property and made it a rental property?
So I have, all right. Back in Omaha, I have my original property I purchased many years ago. When I was young, they didn't have quite the resources there are. There was no Bigger Pockets. There were no, podcasts and everything that would really, people these days are very privileged. I mean, there's so many resources and information out there that just didn't exist back in the day. But I knew from a young age, I was like, well, renting is essentially burning money, right? Like you need a place to live. Like at least you're getting some level of equity. So, I purchased a house at a relatively young age, like maybe like 24. I think I purchased my first house, and had ambitions to purchase before that, but I had to build up my credit. Now, I didn't know there were so many ways around that, that I know now. So yeah, anyways, that house I converted that was a rental property. I had a house that I was fortunate enough to inherit. It was my father's house. I converted that into a duplex. I've sold that since. I don't have that anymore. My girl also had a house which we blew out the walls and fixed it all, put in LVP and, stainless steel appliances, made it real nice. And that's a rental too. So we've got 2 rentals currently as it exists, and we've got our house down here, and we came to Arizona and buy it at a good time and have a sizable amount of equity in this property. A lot of things have changed. 17. So, we've got a little bit of stuff, maybe like, equity or capital, loaded up and looking for opportunity. And I think going into, this new year, 2023 and beyond, I think a lot of opportunities going to present itself. I mean, I think it's a great time to get involved in the market. Things were so heated for so long, and people were just, waiving inspections and just buying, cash buyers just, swooping up and getting everything. Now everybody's sitting on the sidelines because the interest rates are high and it's a little scary. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely opportunity, and your average person can do this too. That's something that, people tend to overlook. They think, it's out of my budget, I can't afford it. If you can get your credit to a certain level and afford to, there's strategies. House hacking is like a big one. People like to do that. The burrs are another one. I mean, anybody that's bigger pockets follower knows a lot of these strategies. And I love to educate people. If anybody ever has a question, related to real estate, I don't claim to be like a guru or, a professional on all levels, but I love educating people and helping them get to the next level.
So the properties that you have in Omaha, is that an Airbnb property, or that's actually a single family rental that
single family rentals? I've never explored the Airbnb, the short term or medium term rental things. Not that I've sort of looked into it, but I've never pulled the trigger on something like that. I think it'd be awesome to get into one of those if the right opportunity presented itself.
I was getting ready to say too, for me, because I did property management for so long, I would rather just have the single family and just collect my rent and just let me know if something happens type of thing. When you get into the Airbnb or the short term, you really got to get into the staging and more of the showing and selling of that property, whether it's online or whether it's in person. And I kind of just want to be look, here's a house, this is your rent, pay it type of thing.
Well, so to counter that, Nicole, I think that there's some risk versus reward type things, right? And you can do, if you can crunch the numbers and it works for a long-term rental, right? Somebody's going to rent this month to month for a year lease, right? You know what you're going to get. You can screen the people and it's a known quantity. But when you get into the STRs, it can make a difference. But the work is on the front side, right? If you can get it set up, do your photos, staging, get it all ready, and have a manager or be semi-local to it. A lot of these are locations that are vacation destinations. You see a lot of demand over in the Smoky Mountains is a big one, and over in Joshua Tree, that's another one. I think you want to be able to provide an experience. And so a short-term rental in Omaha is less desirable than a short-term rental that's in a national park somewhere,
right?
Or something. So, but if you can automate it and get the right people and places I think that there's a lot more upside to it. You could really turn that into a nice capital gain. So
are there any other investments that you plan to, because, we talk a lot, and in the Patreons, we talk a lot about, and I'll give you an example. Last year, everybody just kind of folded when they started to see the market turn. The people who got other investments, they wasn't even flinching. They're okay, this happens, and you have those other sources of income. And this is one of the things, people, I'm very specific about money because I've been able to have it and maintain it for the long term for so long, right? So then you say, okay, I'm no longer working a 9 to 5. So now I'm more frugal than I've ever been, because you don't know, with 5 years down, I have to live off this money if worst case scenario, right? But you also can make other investments as well. And I think that's the thing. I think for most people make the money from the snakes and reinvest back in the snakes. What is your advice? Definitely reinvest back in the snakes. But if you're doing it, if you've been here 10, 15 years, shouldn't you have, or what would be your recommendation to how much should go back into the snakes and how much should go into other investments? I guess that's the best question.
I couldn't really give you you have to do a situation where it works for you, right? And sometimes I think investing in the snakes is important, and you should continue to invest in the snakes, but I think you should diversify too. Now, it has to make sense for you. Whatever your investment looks like, understand that there's risk involved in any kind of investment. And, maybe that investment would be real estate. Maybe that investment would be the stock market. Maybe it's crypto, or maybe it's something else. Maybe you're investing in a small business, or, whatever works for you. But I do think diversification is key to success in the long term. And then sticking to the path, right? Like people get scared. I see this all the time. And this applies to the ball python market as well as real estate market. People get, they see, things going downhill. And, honestly, that's the time to hit the gas. That's the time to buy a little bit more. There's more opportunities that present themselves right now. I see amazing snakes on Morph Market right now. I see really nice houses that are available right now. Yeah, the rates are up, but like you could buy that house, ride it out for the next year or two. Interest rates go down, you refi out of it. But again, like we stated numerous times, no risk, no reward. So you got to be willing to, put your money where your mouth is. And you should definitely do that in a manner that, understanding what risk profile is, right? What's available? Like you got to be able to pay the bills.
Right. What is the risk assessment? Right. Yeah. So for me, like it's crazy. Like you talk about your personal situation. Ideally, if we sold or rented out this house today, it would be a cash cow. Like really the return on investment today. But like I told my husband, the thing about it is what are we doing with that money? Because we're buying another house, then I feel like I'm losing out. Yes, I'm getting a lot of money from selling this one, but the value of the house that we're going to take that same cash in to put into another house, it's just not work. First of all, I love this house. I don't have to go anywhere. But this house is set up to be a perfect Airbnb.
In your situation, it would depend on if you're willing to like move to another market, right? It doesn't always make sense when if you're going to sell or if you're going to Airbnb or rent or whatever with your property, if you're moving into the same market, you're going to pay those inflated prices. So it doesn't always make sense. Now, if you're willing to take your gains and move into another market where it's, more, affordable, it can make a lot of sense, but you're upending your whole life if you do something like that.
Right. Right. And then I think at this time, like for me, other than like some cash investments, I think it's important to hold on to your cash, until you see, what next year is going to bring. I tell people I think it's going to be a small upturn in the market. I don't think it's going to be massive, but I worked in property management for years. And we bought more properties during the down market than ever. Like we went crazy. 2019 to 2022 was insane. Florida, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Rochester, New York. I mean, and we made some come ups. Like we bought some properties that don't look distressed. It was just financially distressed, but it didn't look it, and really made some come up. So to your point, it all depends on, like you said, where do you want to buy? Because there's some markets that if I wanted to manage properties in, let's just say, Raleigh, North Carolina, I could benefit from. The Outer Banks, I could benefit from, but I don't want a property that's going to be so far away to manage. And I don't, at this time, want to hire a property manager. I wanted self-management for the first few years, if that makes sense.
I think that makes the most sense for anybody that's getting their start, right? Yeah. If you have some level of experience and you can manage yourself, you can save that money. But when you get to a certain level, that's not really an option. If you want to scale, if you want to get bigger and you want to, expand your opportunities. But, as you were saying there, the opportunities, what Warren Buffett had a quote, it was like, be greedy when others are fearful and fearful when others are greedy.
That's greedy.
Right? Now, as we're entering this recession, even though they're not, stating it as a recession, that's when there are opportunities. Buyers, you're less struggle. You're not competing with other buyers. And then, sellers, they don't have buyers. So they're willing to drop their prices. They're willing to negotiate and, you can get the terms you want or need. Opportunities are there, whether it's a recession or not. It's just a matter of like seizing them and being willing to jump on them when they come up. And that's important.
Yeah, so it's crazy. Wait a minute. So G said it's going down. I'm seeing properties down in my area, 50K plus, but still 2021 highs. More companies are laying off, and that will create more opportunities. Because I truly believe, G, that we never came out of the COVID. Like the government said move forward, but people were still distressed, right?
Yes.
In fact, in this county, in PG County, there were still millions of dollars of rent payments, the rent relief payments that were never paid because they could not find employees to process the paperwork to pay these back rents for a year, which is insane.
Yeah.
Right. So I believe that part of what we're dealing with now is that the government said, okay, move forward, no more stimulus, which I wasn't a big fan of the stimulus anyway, because I do believe that can be a crutch, you know what I mean? But
what? Yeah.
There was people who really did need the relief, the government relief and resources that still do not have it. And even though people say there's jobs everywhere, you forgot the family dynamic changed too. And I'll give you an example. My grandkids been here for a week. If a child sneezes, cough, have watery eyes, you're not supposed to send them to school. So most families who have children have to work from home. There's no choice.
It's a real thing. Yeah.
There's no choice because the daycare is not going to say you don't have to pay me. They already strapped for cash. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting struggle going through all of that, and I'm kind of happy. Hopefully, we're on the backside of it, like less COVID type stuff you were talking about. You just got sick, and I just had a head cold myself, and I just went through it. But during COVID, if you had a sniffle or something, they're like, no, you have to go to, you got to stay at home. You got to take a COVID test.
Don't
at least,
here.
I'm old school. I'm from a mentality of like rub some dirt on it, get to work, go get your shit done, and. It was kind of nice that during COVID, they were like a little bit more understanding, and it was like, hey, work from home, figure it out. But, to be honest, we just got to get back to the bbasics and keep this economy trucking.
Yeah, definitely that. And, keep people, I can't say employed, because what I experienced in the employment is that the workforce changed by people taking advantage of that situation. You know what I'm saying? Like people knowing that, oh, okay, if I'm sick, I don't have to go into work today. You know what I mean? And then we pay as a company, we paid you for each day you were sick because we didn't want you to come to work. There were people who was really sick. We didn't want you to feel like I don't want to stay home because I don't have any more sick time. That is not what we wanted, for you to come to give everybody COVID. But there were people who also took advantage of this scenario as well because we paid.
There always will be. It doesn't matter if we're in COVID or not. You know what I mean? There's always going to be somebody that's taking advantage. They had all those government small business loans that went out, and people were scooping those things up left and right, 50K here, 50K there. They didn't all need it. They were like payroll loans, but they'd have no or one employee. They still took them. They're great. Yeah. Give it away.
Absolutely. So right now, what is your 2023, your most anticipated clutch?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really anticipating a lot of good clutches. I don't know if I could just give you one. So, all right, my number, I've got a couple of girls that have ovulated, getting ready to ovulate, going. I've got one, I'm literally waiting on eggs. She's actually overdue. And I'll tell you this one, because this is the one that's top of my head. Okay. I don't know if you saw, I had a really nice animal. It was maybe like one of my showcase animals I produced last year. And it was a black pastel leopard yellow belly hypo desert ghost.
I see on Instagram. Mm-hmm.
So that's a real nice one. Turned out real well. A good mix of codoms, kind of that dark gene stuff that we're talking about, but plus a couple of, recessives. Turned out real well. Anyways, that male, I paired him to a pastel inchy spot nose desert ghost hypo. So that male was just a double het. But at a minimum, I'm going to get I'm going to get 100% double het animals, or, best case scenario, I'm going to have a couple of, I'm going to have very loaded 2 recessive animals. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm working on a couple little minor ultramel projects and lavender projects. Those are kind of side projects. Most of my stuff is hypo DG clown. I hope to hit some hypo DG clowns this year. Probably will. I'm using not a clown, but a Krypton male that's a hypo DG I'm plugging. I'm plugging him into stuff. I just had him locked up with a Spark 100% hypo, and I have a lot of other animals that are holdbacks that are maybe carrying one recessive and then 50% het for the other 2, or double visual that are 50% for the third. So yeah, it's going to be a really exciting year. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully, luck's with me and I can hit some awesome stuff.
Awesome. Now, for this year, for show purposes, do you have a goal of how many animals that what is going to be your next show that you actually?
So I didn't put my money down yet, but I was hoping to hit the Anaheim show, the Super Show. I would love to do more shows and travel, and I'm blessed enough to be relatively close to California. I mean, it's still, about a 6 or 7 hour trek to get over there, depending on
That's
traffic.
not too bad.
It's not terrible, right? Exactly.
Right.
Like, they've got, Tinley, and they've got, the Texas shows, they got Daytona, but those are like a solid 24-hour show. Like maybe the Texas one's a little bit less, but like I'm not with driving 24 hours to go to a show. I could fly in and network maybe, but I'm not at a point in my life where I'm full time. I have a regular job. I do. I'm a director of engineering for a hospitality group, so I just maintain hotels basically, and that keeps me sorted, grounded, and dedicated to my job. So I can't just jetting over to California is one thing. Jetting over to Daytona is a whole other. So
it's another, right?
Well,
I definitely want to make one of the California shows next year. I think what I'm gonna do is probably try to make the January, the Pomona one.
Okay.
Next year. But I will tell you, I was surprised to see how much because you think Tinley is the biggest one, and Tinley probably is from a perspective of vendors, I guess, or let's say what vendors, the quality of vendors. But that show is huge. Yeah,
I've never attended Tinley, and that's maybe one of my bigger regrets. Being in Nebraska. When Tinley was getting a start, I remember, and I had all intentions of going. I knew it was a big show, never made my way. Now that I'm like significantly further away, I'm less inclined to drive. Again, though, if I were to fly out and just kind of shoot the shit and see my people, that would be fun. We'll see. I had full intentions of going to the last one in October because I think October's the big one. And I just didn't. I couldn't make it work. Maybe this fall, we'll see. I hope to go.
Yeah, you got to come at least. What I would say for me is that it seems like that's the central place that everybody from everywhere is at least once, and it's like this great big old family reunion. I mean, yes, the animals are amazing, but the people is even more amazing. So yeah, I definitely think that if you can, definitely try. But I get it. Like I don't think, and I was sharing this with my husband. This might be my last March Tinley, and the reason why I say that is it depends on the way it looks like my animals may actually like start producing around that area, March to June. Mm-hmm. For the first couple of years, I don't think I'm gonna be comfortable with saying Michael and to my nephew Jared, if this happens, this is what you do with the eggs. Like I just don't think I am gonna be able to be that comfortable. And I don't want to say I'm gonna invest in, because we prepaid for Tinley when we leave. When we leave the last one, we already booked for the other one. I don't want to say I'm definitely going to pay for it when we leave in October this year because I know it's going to be a little bit more. So maybe I'll do Pomona in January, not the March Tinley, but I won't miss the October Tinley ever. So,
well, that's the thing that's tough about shows, right? You usually book these things well in advance, right?
Yep.
And you just don't know what you're going to have when it comes down to it. My last two clutches of 2022, I fizzled out. I got slugs. I had like one egg out of a slug clutch that was looking good and went bad, and the other one was all slugs. So like I had a couple really good clutches that I would have awesome animals when I went to the Pomona show in January, but they slugged out. What am I going to do? That's not standard, but maybe I have an amazing array of things if I go over to the Anaheim show. But like maybe my season's a little late. Maybe I have clutches in the incubator, but they're not hatched and ready to go. And that's kind of the issue. Unless you're somebody that's cranking out stuff like on a high level where you're always having new animals. Me personally, I'm a maybe like 12 clutch guy, 15 clutches, max. This year I'll probably have more, maybe like north of 20. But you never know what you're gonna have.
It always cracked me up to hear like people say I have 100 clutches, and it's like 100 on average, 5 to 8 babies. Like that's
wild. They're wild. And you know what? That's not sustainable. I'm sorry. If you're not full-time, I mean, I can't say this for everyone, but like the majority of people, when they're young and new and they're like, man, I'm hoping to, get to a point where I'm doing 100 clutches. Are you really? Like, do you know the work that goes into 100 clutches? Like, probably not. There are people that do it, and, more props to them if they can handle that. But, if you want like a work-life balance, you want to be able to like enjoy these animals, and make it a second job, keep it small and focus on quality. I think that's like the best tip you could give anyone, really.
And that's the message you've heard for the last, 3 to 6 months. Focus on quality, focus on quality, focus on quality. So definitely. So I'm going to just take a time to honor our sponsor, and then we're going to come back and we're going to ask Matt my final question that I want him to answer. And Matt, it's not a one word or one sentence question. Now you got to give a veteran's version of a response. So hold tight.
This episode is sponsored by Unique Serpents by Maki. Maki is the proud owner of her reptile pet rental service, where she actually offers birthday parties, photo shoots, local community events, video shoots, and help people to get over their fears of reptiles. She understands the importance of taking a person's fear into account. You can find Maki by going to Facebook, like, share, and follow her content on Facebook so that you're up to date on what's going on with Unique Serpents and what services are being offered in what season. You also can find her on Instagram. Like, share, follow her Instagram as well. I would like to take this time to thank Maki for sponsoring this episode of Reptiles and Cocktails. I look forward to your continued partnership, and I look forward to all that is to come for Unique Serpents by Maki.
We were just talking about that, right? Helping people with their phobias, letting them handle. That's an awesome thing. So good for her.
Yep. So here's my final question, and it's one lump, but I want you to kind of break it apart. So we're going to do it like this. The best advice that you can give to the hobby to make sure that we stay focused on what's important, that we sustain the hobby based on what's important, and what we can do more of or do better to refrain from unnecessary competition.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I think this like shadows a lot of what we were discussing earlier, and that's like focusing on where your passion is, like working on what you want to work on, the projects that you want to work on, and also just like focusing on quality. If you're you can crank out 1,000 pastels and probably, sell them for $20 a piece and make some money. But is that going to get you excited? Is that something that you want to do? Personally, I like to like push the envelope a little bit, try and get into some new areas. And although world's firsts are sort of something that are less of a bragging rights thing these days, there's always a new world's first. I think people need to strive to develop their collection to an area where they want, they're producing amazing new stuff that gets them excited and keeps them excited about the industry, as well as when you're producing things that nobody else is producing, there's no real competition. So, you talked about the level of, like reducing the amount of competition out there and not just cranking out animals to crank out animals. If you're producing like new and original stuff that nobody's ever done, you basically are like leading the market.
Absolutely. And I think that what you said is the passion, because at the end of the day, it's the passion that gets you through that impatience. Like even if I don't see eggs, I get to clean you, I get to look at you, and then buying animals that you really love to look at. Because for me, people talk about spider all the time. My 2 spider combos are 2 of my favorite snakes. One of them is being bred. I will breed him as long as he decides he wants to breed. because there is nothing anyone can take from me to say, Nicole, you will never love spider again. Fortunately for me, unfortunately, I never had spider babies, right? So every spider I have, they don't have no crazy wobble or anything like that, but I haven't dealt with a massive amount of them.
Yeah.
But for me, the visual look of a spider in any combo will never leave my heart. It was my second ball python that I ever fell in love with, other than, of course, back in the day, your normal. But the spider was the first thing before the pie that made me say, oh my God, look at that snake. And that has not left me.
Spiders had an amazing run, and they are very impressive, visually, and yeah, people turned on them a little bit, but they are, visually appealing, and used to be. There was a poster I had back in the day. It was like Along Came a Spider. It was a nerd poster, and he had, Kevin McCurley had this whole mix of all these spider combos. It was a really cool poster. And that was like kind of as I was getting into ball pythons. I remember getting one of those and liking it. There's a lot of really cool genes that are allelic with spider too. You talk about wobble, and people are concerned about wobble. Wobble is something that I've seen, but like not really experienced too much. And I bred spiders back in the day. I've sort of phased spider out of my collection, but no knock on it. It's just there's less desire for people to buy them.
Right.
And it's like kind of pastels have sort of gone down that path too. People are a little less inclined to buy a pastel animal. So when I develop projects outside of pastel, but it still works really well in other projects. You get into like
combos. Exactly.
Yeah. So each gene has its own place, and everybody has their own palette too.
I totally agree. And like I said, it's just that spider. It just always will be in my heart. And my VP Xanthic Bumblebee, the eyes on that animal, like it's just a beautiful animal. Like that snake is gorgeous. And actually, Omar he wanted to buy that snake before I bought it. And so I always say, if I ever get rid of it, I would actually call him personally and say, hey, I'm ready to put this snake on Morph Market. But I know it would be a few years because I want to pair him for a couple of years. I know for sure to see what he produces or what he gives me. But he's a beautiful snake. And something I can say that's consistent with spiders, and anybody in the chat can tell me if I'm wrong. My spiders have never came off food. Like never. Spiders was the only snake that I can say that just it's going to pound the food. It's going to eat the food all the time. And I love that about them as well. So yeah, I think that some of the old school genes should never leave the gene pool because they still are phenomenal in what they produce today. But my favorite, gene is my favorite to produce is going to be like clown combos. That's my favorite to produce. But my favorites to actually like have and look at and love is those black pastels, those blackheads, and those darker combos. The blackhead cypress, combos. Even like lace. I have some lace. I like it, but it's not how people like, I feel that way about the pastel. Pastel hasn't left my heart like that. I will always plug it into most of what I breed.
You start seeing those lace combos in person, and it'll change your mind. You'll be like, "Oh my God, these are."
I have some, but for me, it's just like I didn't even learn how to really see the lace until I think Riz was one who really could just help me, point it out. For me, when I look at, and this was just me, especially in the beginning, lace, enhancer, DG, if that was in it, it kind of all gave me that same look. So one of the things that I'm doing now is really trying to study those harder combinations that looks like the same thing, but it's not, to try to be able to have that eye and identify things, like extract the genes out with my eyes, opposed to just, this was the combo, so this is what it is. To be able to see it without even knowing what the combos are and pick out the visuals. And some things are easy, like yellow belly is easy to do things like that with, the acid for me is easy to do that with, but it's still a lot of things that's kind of hard. Mojave is easy for me to do that with.
there's some really subtle ones that you know, I had a clutch last year that was it was like what was it, firefly, red stripe, yellow belly to a spot nose OD clown, and there were so many subtle genes. You know, you're talking about like fire and yellow belly and OD and whatever. Like ID in that clutch was a nightmare. You know, you just never know sometimes what you got until you sometimes read it. That's why you see a lot of disclaimers these days about you know, we try our best to identify this animal and this is what we believe it is, but do your due diligence. And you know, we guarantee the recessives, but you see that on all the big breeders' morph market pages these days, and it makes sense because sometimes it's hard to say with 100% certainty what you're hatching.
Yeah, like Ozzy always say, well, I believe it to be. Yeah. And then like actually he sold me the orange ring Desert Ghost het pod, and he said to me when he gave it to me, he said, I really think this super, but I can't price you for it, but I think this super. And every time she shared, I think it's super. So I told him this next year, I'm going to send him the picture and say, I believe it's super. I believe it to be super. But I thought that was pretty cool because it was two. He just said pick one. He didn't tell me which one to pick. And I picked that one, and he said, I believe that to be super. But, you know, this is how I'm selling.
You know, take people around you too, you know, like he's like, hey, you know, I'm not going to price it as such, but I believe it's a super, so take advantage, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's happened where, you know, even in some scenarios where somebody else said, no, I'm telling you, this has this in it. He just go ahead and sell it as, you know, whatever he thought it is. And then they proved it out. It was like one woman in England, he tells that story. I think she was in London. Or in Canada, and she actually proved this snake out to be the highest of the genetic form that it could have possibly been. He thought that was hilarious. So I look forward to that too. I look forward to the fun of being able to sell a snake and somebody raise that snake up and to produce something with that snake that I didn't even know the snake had. You know, that's another part of the hobby, the unknown. That's what grows.
To me, that's like one of the most exciting things is when somebody produces something off of something that you produced. Like, I don't know, it's like the circle of life or whatever, you know, it's like super exciting to see that happen. And especially when it's like a younger hobbyist or somebody that's just getting into it and you like sort of mentored them on some level, you know, answered a lot of questions. Like, I've experienced that a number of times and it has its own level of rewards, you know? Totally.
Facts. But the beauty of it, like I was telling Antoine, you know, Antoine and his
I love that.
The other day we was having a conversation, and I have some snakes on him, and both of them are double. Well, one of them is double hat enhancer clown, and he was like, "You got to send it and test it for clown." And I was like, "Antoine, I don't want to. I'm just going to pair it to this, and I want to prove it out." He was like, "If you don't send that in to get tested," I'm like, "I want my first year of possibilities." All right. After the first year, maybe I'll use the testing. Y'all had years to do this.
So many.
Let me see. Yeah. You know what I mean? I want that.
Yeah. Yeah, it does change.
For me, for my first year, it's not about the money yet type of thing. So I just want to see if I can take these hats, put them together, and see what comes out. Instead of knowing that this is hat for this. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I get it. It takes the I don't know, there's some level of like reward of like, hey, I proved this out, and it takes that away. It just removes that from when you know or you don't. The testing is supposed to be accurate. I've heard some people say some like, oh, you know, supposedly this didn't turn out, or they knew this animal was, they sent it in. I've not experienced it personally. You know, I have to just believe the science of it, but it does definitely, it changes the dynamics of how people like plan a program.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling Antoine, it's equivalent to me of the gender reveals. I don't like the gender reveals. I'm the person who pushed the baby out, let the doctor tell me if it was a boy or a girl.
Okay.
Gender reveals drive me crazy. Okay. It's like, y'all can't just wait.
Yeah, I feel like the idea of using today's technology to advance things, but to each their own. That's a personal preference deal.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I would never, but and I don't want to know. Like, even when people find out, I don't want to know what your baby is. Let me just tell me when the baby comes out. But that's how I feel about them. So I say my first year, maybe 2024, I'll say, let me test some of these hats. Like maybe I'll send the once they add some more genetics to it. Like there are some that I would want. I think they pulled the Exantic back. Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong. I think at one point they thought they was going to be able to test for the Exantic, but then they pulled that back recently. I think we heard something like that. But I feel also, Matt, by that time they'll be through all the kinks.
Hopefully, yeah. That's the goal,
and then,
really.
then I can go there and do it then. So, all right. So if anybody in the chat had any other questions for Matt, you can drop them now. I just want to say personally, Matt, thank you. So this how this happened. So let me just explain to everybody. This podcast is for reptile breeders and anyone else in the hobby. There are so many of you that I would love to interview. And like for Matt, when you made that comment, you see how quick I replied? The person on the other side sometimes might think you're too busy or whatever, or, you don't know the availability. So if it's anybody who ever just like want to sit down and just do this with me, I am more than welcome for you to reach out to me, to communicate it. Don't be like I did Matt. I'm having a whole conversation about somebody else I interviewed, and Matt was like, oh, like what? So I'm glad this finally happened, because I thought I knew Matt from Maryland. I do not know, like, how did I feel like I was so bonded to you, and we never met in person. So I'm glad I felt that way, because it made the conversation for us to make this happen more comfortable. So thank you.
What's up? I appreciate it, Nicole. Yeah, it's awesome to get to like take the time, shoot the shit with you, and best of luck in the future. Your pairings, your walk. Definitely send me a link. I'll make sure to
Definitely.
I'll definitely be the first one to donate. Anybody wants to follow me, Matt Yates Reptile on Instagram, you can find me there. Shoot me a message. Definitely,
and
I'm always.
Bosa dropped the link several times in the chat, so
Perfect.
it's there. Yeah.
Bosa, thank you for moderating and taking care of everything there too. I definitely appreciate that. We just exchanged a follow on IG too, so look for more of your content, and good stuff. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. And I appreciate everybody in the chat this morning. So, Matt, I don't know if you're aware, most of us didn't go to sleep till about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, because Keys Constrictors had a giveaway that was unending. And you couldn't go to sleep because there was opportunity. There was even females giving away last night.
So this is the usual suspects. I've sort of been like aware of this recently. I've been following Ray on the Luring Serpents. That dude is a real G. I like that guy. Like, he just keeps it, 100. And so I've been following him and seeing a little bit more of you guys, like that network of people. And so I'm definitely trying to keep up with everyone. So
and definitely you got to come out on a hair down one Friday. Reach out to Keys. I know, send you the link. And come on, it's a great time. But last night was absolutely, for me, out of all the times, the longest I've been up. Because Keys and them know I normally can go to sleep on them about 1:12. But I couldn't go to sleep last night. So we're all exhausted. I'm exhausted. I'm sick. But it was a great time. So shout out to the Keys family. Shout out to everybody who stayed, all the 100+ people who stayed all night with us.
Oh my God. Last night. All right.
It was a whole party, and it was a really good time. The part of the community that I love the part of the community where everybody just feel like safe, come in, shoot the shit, and just have a really good time. And last night, the animals that people gave away were incredible. Incredible.
Awesome. Very good stuff. That's what it's all about.
I just say that was an amazing time. If you guys didn't watch the live, it's a long one. Just kind of, pick your parts that you might want to see, because it was a long one last night. But thank you so much, Wayne. Thank you to everybody. Thanks to Matt. We're going to say bye to everybody in the chat. Thank you all for being here, and have a very great Saturday. 4 o'clock, check out Kent Craft Brew over on his channel. Check him out. I can't remember, Kent, don't kill me, who he's interviewing today, but check him out. I'll be watching from the bed. Support Matt. Make sure you check Matt Reptiles on Wolf Market. And on his Instagram, he has some amazing animals on his Instagram. I can't tell you which ones are or are not for sale. I can just tell you there's some amazing animals there.
I think it's worth a conversation. You know what I mean? Let's talk about it.
I'm sure everything can be bought if for the right price.
with the right number, yeah, we talk, you know. Yeah.
All right, guys. See y'all later.
All right. Bye.
Man, hang it there for